document. So with that intro, I'm going to turn it over to Erica.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So good evening, Council. Tonight I'm going to go over the elements of the draft Parks and Recreation Plan and discuss what we heard from both the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee as well as the Planning Commission, and edits that we are making to the plan that reflect the feedback that we have received so far. Just a reminder to everyone, and I really want to emphasize this, that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is a 20-year planning document, and it will get updated as the plan progresses. It is both a practical guide and an aspirational document. And the last sentence under the guiding principles and the executive summary really sums this up. It states that these principles transcend constraints and available resources. So in this plan, we both have quick and easy projects that the city can accomplish, as well as big projects that will require extra planning needs in the future. I'm going to be fairly quick in this presentation, but if you have any questions, please refrain to the end, unless you want to use the little hand function, and that'll be good. I think I can see everyone. But if I miss you, just chime in. So the plan process. So this plan is an update to the 2006 Parks and Recreation Plan, which led to improvements in the city, such as the Sherwood Center for the Arts, Cannery Square improvements, and of course the new skate park. This update, it started back in April of 2019, and key documents and regional trends were reviewed for the needs assessment, and that assessment led to recommendations and funding prioritization of projects, and it is scheduled for plan adoption later this fall and winter. So this plan is all about advancing the community's vision that was adopted in 2019, and I'm not going to go through what those visions were, but those were our 6 elements that we're using for our current comprehensive planning project as well. So this plan is ultimately guided by the healthy and valued ecosystem goals in that visioning document. This plan has been grounded in public engagement from the start. We held a survey, an online survey questionnaire, and we had 659 responses. We did several stakeholder interviews and focus groups. We were out and about in the community at several community events to get feedback. And overall, we've had a lot of participation in this project. So just a little orientation to the plan document itself. There's an it opens up with an executive summary, and then we have 5 chapters to the plan and a list of appendices. If you really want to get into the nuts and bolts of the plan, I really urge you to read the supporting documents and the appendices. So jumping right in, we have principles, strategies, and actions. So the guiding principles are aspirations of the community drawn from emerging themes throughout the community engagement process. These principles support the community's vision and goals in the plan document and can also be a tool to help guide future decisions for park and recreation needs in Sherwood. The plan also provides for 8 overarching strategies. And these strategies will help guide future decisions that are identified in the plan. And I'm not going to go over each one. I know that all of you have read this plan document thoroughly. Park development guidelines. So this plan actually calls out some guidelines for park development. The intent of these guidelines is to protect and enhance the city's quality of life through encouraging functional, safe, and aesthetically pleasing development of parks that are compatible with the neighborhoods that we have in Sherwood. The park development guidelines, they look at the size of the parks, what structures are compatible in those parks, and information like that. So overall, we're going to jump to Chapter 4, which is recommended improvements. This chapter is organized into 5 sections: existing parks, new parks and trails, existing indoor recreational facilities, new recreation facilities, and recreation facility considerations. So based on the parks assessment, we have 3 categories of park improvements that are recommended. We have landscape conversions, enhancement projects, and major enhancements. So landscape conversions, we're really thinking about where we can replace and enhance areas with more native and eco-friendly plants and trees to enhance our urban forest. The enhancement projects, these will be one or more features that are added to existing parks. Typically, these enhancements don't affect more than 10% of the park area, and typically they cost less than $500,000. So major enhancements, these are really broken down into 3 tiers. We have high quick win projects, which is tier 1. We have tier 2, which includes parks that serve neighborhoods that might have fewer park amenities nearby. And then we have tier 3, which includes pocket parks and special use sites. I'll probably talk more about those through our discussion later this evening. But recommendations in the plan for new parks and trails. The plan talks about securing parks in Brookman and creating a distinct identity for each one of those parks. It talks also about serving the Tonkin employment area with the regional Ice Age Tonkin Trail. And that we should also be applying the guidance of this park plan document when developing future concept plans. And then we should also evaluate opportunities to add trail routes and connections that are addressed in the transportation system plan when opportunities arise. So this plan also talks about our existing indoor facilities. The plan calls for reinvesting in the Sherwood Center for the Arts and the YMCA building. And it also talks about that the city could conduct a feasibility analysis to renovate and expand the senior center at some point in the future. The plan also calls out a long-term vision to replace the Sherwood Field House and to repurpose that site for another use. So the field house replacement, in the plan, it talks about how the field house could be replaced. It could be replaced with 2 fields with storage. It could have meeting rooms. It could also have team rooms. And the ideal location would be adjacent to an outdoor field complex. So the plan also talks about new recreation facilities. Talks about securing a site for a new sports field, developing a universal accessible destination play area for the kiddos in Sherwood, and possibly expanding the YMCA pool. So it also calls out certain facility considerations that we could consider in the future. And these facility types include a bike skills course, a future dog park, additional paved sports courts, and enhanced play experiences. So the plan also addresses play play area elements, such as nature play, adventure playgrounds, having interactive games for both kids and adults, and incorporating playful art equipment in parks as well. So the plan has a project list for the parks in Sherwood and a list of improvement types and overall planning level of cost with additional notes that will help guide future decisions. And finally, we get to Chapter 5, which is implementation. So the plan, Chapter 5 is implementation, and it really addresses operational funding. It also addresses the city's capital improvement system plan that identifies capital projects and how these projects have been mostly funded through system development charges here in Sherwood. The plan has a list of prioritization criteria that will help determine and implement the timeline for projects and actions in this document. And finally, the plan sets out an action plan with specific actions and programs that can be implemented in certain time frames. And here, this slide presents that action plan and that criteria for prioritization. So we have some quick wins, as well as some, longer range park improvements. So next steps. The next steps will be to update the plan with the input we received from the Parks Recreation Advisory Committee and also the Planning Commission, and of course comments that we have received from council. And we hope to adopt this plan later this fall or early winter next year. Some of the comments that we have received from PRAB and Planning Commission, include, you have a memo in your packet as well that describes some of the input. So there's some Scrivener's errors, some minor updates to some maps and graphics. We need to reflect the new relationship between the city and the school district throughout the plan document. We've also heard that we need to expand and strengthen the section discussing trails, walking, and biking. And then there are some other additions that call for, addressing more elements to the YMCA and swimming pool. And also we need to incorporate some revisions to the executive summary. So with that, I'm going to open it up to discussions and questions.
I'll take another. Thank you.
Eat any of those?
Let me
I
stop sharing
I'll
screen.
eat them. Yes.
Who wants to go first?
I guess I can go first if no one else will go. That's volunteer.
Yeah, I've got a list, so maybe you'll lead into my list.
So, two questions. The first one, as you worked through the process, was there this discussion made about, or had about land banking and identifying parcels out in the undesignated areas and the rural reserves? Even in Sherwood West, although it'd be very expensive at this point, but to start to look, down the road and banking some land for the future. I know we don't necessarily have capital for that right now, but you never know when those opportunities are going to pop up.
Kristen, are you there?
Who's that?
I don't hear Kristen. I didn't attend every single Parks and Recreational Advisory Committee board meeting that they had, talking about this plan. I think Kristen would probably have more information in regards to, any comments that were made through the committee about land banking.
There's 4 people on YouTube right now watching.
Had trouble unmuting myself. That was definitely discussed at the Parks Advisory Board. It's something that we have talked about quite a bit, and especially on the other side of 99, and making sure that we're looking at acquiring land. That was identified in our last Parks Master Plan as a priority as well. So that's something that I was thinking about as well. I think we need to go back through and make sure that that's reflective. That came up again last night in our meeting. So that's something we'll look at for sure.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially as, like I said before, you never know when grant opportunities pop up, or, you know, the time might be right to do a parks fund or something like that, and having those options ready to go is important.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. And then I think you answered this, but I want to make sure. Eric, you made a comment about updating this document, given the fact that the schools pulled out of our 20-year relationship in terms of sharing parks and scheduling. Is that more than just an edit? Have the impacts, long-term impacts of that been discussed with the team, and what that might mean, and how we maybe need to rethink our parks plans, especially as it relates to sports fields?
Yeah, we discussed that last night at Parks Board as well, and I think that it is going to impact our priorities. Potentially, we had originally had that we might want to focus on a sports field or a sports complex in 10 years. And knowing that we don't have access to program and schedule fields, that might move up on the priority list and become more important. So that's something that we want to take a look at again and say, okay, knowing what we do now and knowing how much the relationship is changing, what adjustments need to be made. We will still list the fields as a community asset, but we do want to make sure that it's clear that it's not something that we have any control over anymore, meaning quality or scheduling. So we do need to make those adjustments.
And then just one, this is not a question, I said two questions, but this is just a thought or an idea I wanted to throw out there. But as I was looking on the west side of 99 for opportunities to create more facilities, parks, etc., for the folks that live on that side of the highway, the properties, there's rural or urban reserves adjacent to the refuge on the north side of the town. And that might be an area we want to consider taking a look at for a park. I was just thinking it would be a great place to put in a park and have it overlook the refuge and services neighborhoods over there. So there's something for consideration that put in your thought process as you work with the Parks Board and the team.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
To develop. Otherwise, it might be perfect for parks.
Absolutely.
So, thanks, Tim. I'll go. So, I don't think it's ambitious. I don't believe it's. I don't see the ambitious as an integral part of this document. The new parks and facilities. Yes, you're missing everything about trails. You're missing everything about a pedestrian bridge, pedestrian tunnel. You're just doing a to be determined figure. You need to put dollars down for parks on the west side of town. Regardless if and when Sherwood West comes in, there needs to be a substantial park over there. So pick a size and put money on it for land acquisition and development. Be ambitious. When I see a total project list, I expect it to be minimum of $100 million. And if it's not 125, I'll be probably disappointed.
And Keith, if I understand you right, you're not expecting that we'll get all those done in 5 years, but it's more that we never know what opportunities for funding come up, and if we have those projects identified and ready to go and in our plans, if there's a chance of getting funding.
This is an aspirational plan and a practical plan. I don't see enough aspirational. And there is absolute practical. Because we have to have the linear parks on the plan to pursue opportunities, or to be able to check it off of a project list that it was funded in other ways. So I mean, improvements to existing facilities, I didn't get into the nuts and bolts. If it's, it's tied to mainly replacing stuff as it ages, if that's the case, that makes sense. If it's adding more facilities to some of these parks, I don't know if I support any of them. I don't know the details. But that's the nature of it. I don't need to know the details. There's money there. Excellent. Good enough for now. But be ambitious. This isn't, I don't see that. Enough of that. If people disagree with me. Others? Thoughts, questions?
I had a couple of things. In some ways, I guess I kind of disagree slightly with what the mayor just said, and that there's a lot of really big ticket items in here, at least 4 or 5 items that are substantial, each one. And the likelihood that we'll do half of those in the next 15 years is probably pretty low. And I get worried when, we put out even though we all know it's an aspirational plan, I think oftentimes the public will perceive something like this as, oh, it's in this document, therefore it will happen. And then when those things inevitably don't all happen, then people get, oh, you promised us this and you didn't deliver. And we've seen that in the past. So that's one thought I had, or one concern I had.
So Doug, on that point, before you go to the other one, how do you think we should address that? Have it more of a narrative, saying that? Because yes, I don't see any reason that city dollars will ever expand the senior center. That's one facility that's eligible for federal money, county money,
right.
State money.
I mean, it could be accomplished through messaging, right? So I think when people, I think the way people in government think about the word plan and the way people in the real world think about plan are somewhat different sometimes. I think when people hear the word plan, I think a lot of people, this will happen, and not this might happen. It's one of many things that could happen, but there's no funding yet, and it may or may not ever happen. And so I think there may be some messaging opportunity around when this is released, even in the the beginning of it, just throughout the document saying, just reiterating that these are things that we would like to do over the next 20 years, but keep in mind none of this is funded, and all of this is subject to change over time as both the needs of the community change and whatever else, finances change and desired amenities change over time, right? So that's all. That's my thought on that. I did have a second topic, but
Yep, go ahead.
welcome to take more response.
Well, just an idea on that before you move on to your second topic. Maybe one way of handling that is in our list of projects in here and a potentially expanded list, we just have a column that, identifies potential funding options. So it's clear, like the senior center, you look at federal funding options, so people reading the list, one, they see that that's a question mark, and two, they also see that it's not necessarily all city property tax dollars that we're looking for to fund these things.
I was just going to add on to the mayor's comment and kind of reinforce what Councilor Scott was saying, because it could be framed as a BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. So you could have those that are outlying of potentials and then have the more realistic short time goals within that 20-year. That's what you do a lot of times in many strategic plans that are out there. So just another way to frame it.
And decisions by the community, the city council with input from our advisory boards, Park and Rec and everybody else, is, as we have money, you can do little projects, or you don't do little projects, you save it up for a bigger project, or, so it's going to be the will of folks in the future on that. But good
Part
point.
of my thought on that too is at least identifying it, have some planning going, because I can't tell you how many times as we've been working outside the community to get dollars for projects, you know, they say to us, well, you don't have a plan, or what's your specific project you've identified? You know, that happened with this transportation bond that Metro has out there right now. So, you know, if we haven't, it might be field of dreams, but if you have somewhat of a plan, you have a better chance of getting the dollars.
Yeah.
My second comment was, I feel like there's a couple of items in here that I seem to have made it into this document that I'm not sure how they didn't seem to come through community outreach or any of the polling that was done. They just seem to have made it in there because someone thinks they're popular now, or they might be in the future.
Like what?
Well, one thing I was thinking of was the pump track. I don't know that we've done any, or at least the parts that I've seen, you know, didn't seem that we got any specific feedback about a pump track. The polling was people want new amenities at parks, and no one was asked specifically about a pump track, but pump track is now in the plan because that's one thing that's popular now, or might be popular now. I don't have anything against the pump track. I'm just curious, you know, how that made it in. Based on the feedback I saw, I didn't see real any.
If I remember right, when we were having the skate park discussions, we had people from the community coming to council asking about a pump track.
We certainly did.
We had a lot of people from outside the community coming too.
Yes.
Well, I actually remember, I don't know where it started, but there was a pretty vigorous social media conversation about a pump track and people putting up maps of what one could look like and here and there. I don't know if we were following social media or not, but there was at one point a conversation about it.
I missed that conversation somehow.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it at Parks Board for the last year or so. There's been some people who have visited Parks Board and shared photos and their ideas from other areas that have had pump tracks. And I believe at one of the, I'm not sure if it was when we were down at Music on the Green or over at the Art Center, but we did show some pictures of different improvements or different type of bike skills courses and pump tracks. And that's where people kind of voted on what types of improvements they would like to see. And I believe it was also in the online survey. Yeah, yes.
Okay, that doesn't match my recollection of the online survey, but I will take your word for it.
And we can sure pull that up and double check, but that's what I recall.
Krista, another quick question, this is Tim. When you guys did the 10-minute walk map analysis, did that take into account that the railroad, you know, you can't have kids crossing railroad tracks? Except at, you know, intersections where there's a crossing guard, etc. I'm just looking at the shading and I'm just trying to understand if it took into that account for that.
I am not sure. Erica, do you recall, or Cindy, is that anything that you would be familiar with? On the 10-minute walk analysis?
I can weigh in general on how the analysis is conducted. Hi, I'm Cindy Mendoza. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation at MIG. When we do a 10-minute walk analysis, we do tend to take into account barriers, including major roadways that are difficult to cross. The intent is that it's not 10 minutes as the crow flies, but actually takes into account those obstacles that you would encounter if you were walking or biking to a park. In some cases, there are opportunities to improve roadway crossings that may improve access, but generally speaking, we want to make sure that there's an opportunity for youth, for example, to get to a park without an escort necessarily, so they can get to their neighborhood park to play.
Okay. Thank you.
Other thoughts, feedback, questions?
I just had a few things. I just wanted to, first of all, in the section on natural areas, talking about compatible structures, I'm glad to see the plan there looking at the LED standards for new buildings. I know when we're talking about a new field house and potentially new public works building, that's something I'd like to see definitely considered when we look at those buildings. But I had a question more specifically in section C, I guess it's talking about the comprehensive network of trails and pathways, and I'm not sure if it would fall in that, and if I may be missing it somewhere else, or if it doesn't even fall in the purview of this plan. But just bike lanes in general, talking about transportation getting around town, is there anything in here or any thoughts on improving or expanding our bike lanes throughout town through some of the streets?
So I can chime in on that. Generally, bike lanes are within the transportation system plan. What you're doing with your parks master plan is more the off-street trails and systems, but the transportation system plan is going to look at the on-street networks.
Councilor Young, did you get I see your hand up. I don't know if you had a comment or not.
It was up. She took it down.
Okay.
I already commented, but I always forget to take that hand down.
That's okay. I didn't want to miss any opportunities. We have about 8 more minutes left, so.
Russell? He said,
I'm here.
What add, young man? Old man?
Well, I had a chance to go to the Parks Board meetings, and I did one of the initial walks with MIG, and we went around to all the parks. So what's been said has been amongst the many conversations that were had at those meetings, and I agree with everything that's been said. I said a whole page of suggestions and scrivener errors, and this map is not very good. We need to swap it out. I've said all of that like a week and a half ago, which Kristen and Erica have. And I agree. I love what the mayor said. If we need to rethink, especially in light of the fact that the school district, we are making this big change. We might want to think about what Kristen talked about. Maybe that brings forward a plan for a new indoor facility that's situated next to 3 good-sized fields. I mean, we need, like Councilor Rosner said, we need to start thinking about land on the other side. That's in the plan, but not specifically called out. I think it says Sherwood West, but it doesn't talk about the urban reserve areas. I just think maybe we need to think maybe a little bit bigger. If it's going to be an aspirational plan, in part, let's aspire maybe a little bit more. I think, Mayor, we had a lot of discussion about the difference between the transportation plan and the parks plan. And immediately the Parks Board called out the fact that trails seemed a little weak as a subject matter in the parks plan. And every board member was concerned about that. And then what we found is that we have a very robust plan, in the TSP. So the board said we need to somehow bring that together and reference and some way so that someone looking at the parks plan knows that the TSP is working in coordination with it, that it's not just trails off-road, it's also trails that come to a road, go across the road, and keep going. So,
in facilities, if there's not a tunnel or a bridge on both these plans, I'm going to be furious. It does, because you don't want to build it how we're going to build these things. If we're going to build it with transportation money, we're going to build it with parks money, we're going to build it with other people's money. Unless they show me a law where you can't have a project in both buckets, I want to fudge that project in both buckets. And then another aspirational, which I believe I want to convince y'all to do next year, is the Festival Plaza, which still isn't on the list.
Oh, you're right. That was a big miss. We've talked about that quite a bit.
And in the amenities park amenities, and I focused on the lists, and I didn't want to get into the weeds of the other part of the document because I generally don't care. Art in parks. We have that as something, because we should have some art in the plaza, for instance, or art in the Cannery Square.
Is that part of the arts master plan?
Yeah.
And if so, do we need to reference it?
If I can chime in, we do reference public art in this document, but yes, we are also hoping to have to you within the next month or so a public art master plan for you to review, and those will tie together because obviously most of that would happen on public spaces in parks in different areas.
But you don't have an art budget, do you? We do have park budgets.
Correct. We would love an art budget. We hope to have an art budget someday.
So I would encourage a couple $100 grand as expansion, whatever, or rebuild, or whatever that is art elements.
Yes.
Mayor, you're so progressive.
I don't know if that's the right word for me, but
I think we should, Kristen, I think we should clip that part and use it at the next meeting. Everybody will be so happy.
Thinking that I'm glad this is recorded.
I know, everybody's going to be so happy to hear that.
Yeah, you can,
Mayor,
you can use that clip in your tight campaign that you're running for re-election. You can totally use that. Yeah.
it is. I am focused.
I'm happy to see art being talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
Specifically in relation to the Sherwood Center for the Arts, it mentions to implement an asset management program to sustain the center in excellent condition. Don't we have a pretty robust asset management program basically all? Okay, so is there a reason why it's specifically called out just for that particular building in this plan?
So Craig is on the line, but we do have an asset management plan for all of our facilities, but being that facility is newer, it is not as detailed or as robust as it should be at this point, and having very expensive equipment that does need to be replaced over time, lights that go out that are very expensive, sound system, that's something that we're actually currently working on, so that if a light bulb goes out on a projector and it costs us $3,000 or $5,000 to repair it, we're planning ahead and can actually do that. So it's in the works, but just something that we're wanting to call out and really work on and emphasize, and recognizing that it's very important, especially as the building ages. I don't know if Craig wants to add anything else to that.
Thank you.
I think you said it all, Kristen.
Okay.
Awesome. What else?
Just a note for Kristen, I noticed that there's some open spaces missing on this map. I'll just send you a separate note.
Okay, thank you. Yes, any notes that you have, please feel free to email us, either Erica or myself. We'd love to get that in there. The Festival Plaza, I believe that note has been shared. It just was after the draft came out, so it's not reflective in this current plan, but we will make sure that there's conversations and notes about that as well.
So just so I understand the process, you're going to take all this feedback and do a final draft with adding this feedback?
Correct. Yes.
And then Erica, process-wise, it'll go in front of the Planning Commission first, correct?
Correct.
And they will make a
Planning Commission will make
recommendation.
recommendations at council.
So my recommendation is when we get that final draft, that we share it and give all the respective boards and commissions, including council, ample opportunity to review everything so we don't miss something.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. else for the good of the collective on this topic? We got 3 minutes.
All good.
Great job, folks.
Thank you, everyone. It's very helpful.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy.
So we'll take